Hello, my name is Christopher Sherman, and today I will be showing the work that I did this sprint for our game Eclipse. I am with Shadowfall Studios. So here I will show it opening up from the build. And let's see, September 8th. Go ahead and open it up. So while this is loading, now it's all loaded, we'll go ahead and hop into level 3, which is where I did the bulk of the work. Let's see. Turn these down a little bit. Stay. Resume. Alright, this is where I did the bulk of the work this month, or this week. And then switching over to Jira, we'll take a look at the first task. And the first task I wanted to show you, actually I'm going to show you a little bit about two tasks. These tasks kind of go hand in hand. One's a bug, one's a task. And they thought they were separate initially, but they kind of ended up going hand in hand. So let's find it. Here it is. And so it's laser beam showing after firing, summary line. The laser beam shows after the player fires, the laser charge beam. The expected result is the laser beam should get wider as the player charges the weapon, then go away on release. If the player doesn't hold down the laser button long enough, the laser beam stays active after the player releases the button. To replicate quickly, click and release the laser button. Severity, issues not horrible, breaks immersion and can confuse the player on how long their weapon has been charging. And I'll go ahead and read you the second portion, or not really the second portion, but the other Jira task we're going to discuss when I get to Unreal. So this is laser charge meter. As the player, I want visual feedback to know when the laser weapon is fully charged. Dependencies, laser beam showing after firing. Completion criteria, fix the way time since pressed is tracked and put it into a variable. Make a widget with a progress bar to show that variable to the player. Alright, and so now switching back to Unreal. So the laser charge weapon was mentioned in the feedback, so I definitely wanted to include that. When you hold down the button, the targeting beam grows, and so I thought that would be enough feedback for the player, but I think that the charge meter is definitely better feedback. And so here I'll go ahead and show this laser charging, and you can see the charge beam, and it decreases on release. And also you can see the beam still grows as well and flashes to that wider one when it's fully charged. And so here I'll go ahead and show it being half full. And I'll also show it getting clicked. And so that click is the big one because that, when you would click previously, that red laser that appeared right there would stay on the screen indefinitely. And so that has been removed. And so now you can click and fire. You deal almost no damage on fire. But here I'll go ahead and shoot at this guy. No damage done. And then at fully charged, you deal a ton of damage. And at half charge, you deal less damage. Hide in here for a bit. And so those ended up being tied together, and they took a bit longer than anticipated, was because I had to really entirely rework the way time was being tracked since pressed in the laser system. The way I had it initially, I couldn't bind the charge meter to it, and I found later it was because it would it was causing the targeting laser to also not reset. So I ended up with something that's actually a bit simpler than what I initially had. I just used a timeline to track the laser charge on input pressed, and then I added a reverse timeline at the end of the script on input released. And so I'll go ahead and show you my time log for this. For laser beam showing after firing, I created it and then put it in progress. Put 2 hours in on, let's see, Monday night. Yep, Monday night. Another 2 hours in Monday night. And let's see, on September 6th, so Tuesday night, Tuesday night, I put 4 hours in. Okay, yeah, and so this is just time spent. That's nothing. This is time remaining. So yeah, here I spent 2 hours, and then I put 4 hours in. On Tuesday night I spent Monday night. Sorry, Monday night I spent 2 hours. Tuesday night I spent 4 hours. It's a little bit confusing because I submitted everything past midnight, so it shows the next day. All right, and then also I'll show you the laser charge meter history. This is about the same. Made it. Updated time, 4.5 hours. On September 6th at 11:39 a.m. All right, and then let's move on to the next one. And so the next one I'll show you is the laser minimap bug. Summary line: minimap doesn't show walls on laser level. Expected result: the minimap should show the level's walls. Actual result: minimap just looks like a white plane that shows the player's position, steps to replicate, open game, and load laser level. Issue: not game breaking, inconvenient. And so I guess I'll just show you the history now as we're in Jira. Here I have original S creating it, and here I have the updating time spent, 3 hours, and that was done on September 6th at 3:44 p.m. So I'll go in and show you, and so you can see in the minimap, you can now see all the walls. Initially it was just the white floor and then the black void from the floor ends. The issue that I figured out after spending a bunch of time, I thought it was initially that it was because the walls were like a similar color to the floor, but it turns out that the issue was just that the walls were too high for the minimap camera and they didn't recognize them. So what I did is I just added a foundation block for all the walls lower to the floor, and so you could recognize it. So I just had to go through and add a block to every wall, which time consuming but not horrible. And yeah, it just took me a while to figure out what actually the issue was. And so next I'm going to show you the grenade launcher enemy, which you may have seen already. We already killed one. Here it is. Grenade launcher enemy. As the player, I want a variety of enemies to fight, so the gameplay stays interesting. Dependencies: none. Completion criteria: grenade launcher enemy that's a child of the default enemy class. Enemy moves slower than the default enemies. Enemy fires grenade that have an AoE damage effect. Grenades fire slower than the default enemy's bullets. And so for history, let's see, I logged 4.5 hours, or I guess 4 hours and 50 minutes at 12:52 a.m. on Monday night. And let's see. I already killed the enemy in this level, so let's go back to the main menu and let's load the level again and I can show you him. So here he is. He moves quite a bit slower, but they deal more damage. And shoot. They deal more damage, and it's harder to escape from since there's that AoE effect. So how I did this was I just created a child of the enemy default, created a child of the default weapon, made it a grenade launcher skin, and I had it shoot these instead of bullets. So the grenades have gravity, so they drop, and yeah, and they explode on impact and everything like that. And so let's close this door and hide out here for a bit. And so also about the grenade launcher enemy, I knew I wanted the boss to have different weapons from the typical enemies, so I wanted to get that working so I could work on the boss. So this is a prerequisite for the boss. But since the boss is at the end of the level, I'll move to the next task that I had, which takes us through the level, which is just laser level fixes and additions. And so as the player, I want to make sure that I have the best experience possible in playing through the level. Dependencies, none. Completion criteria, add level specific boss, add health pickups at points where the playtesters had trouble, add different enemy types, and remove the mini robot section and add a short new section in its place. And so I'll show you the time logged for this. Let's see. Make sure we're still recording, because I always am worried. I added a ton. I worked on this just throughout the week here and there. So let's see. Updated. Time spent 2 hours on the night of the 5th, or the afternoon of the 5th. Here I spent another 2 hours at. Oh, that's the same one. Logged 6 hours the night of the 5th. So this was the afternoon of the 5th. Night of the 5th, and then next one. Time spent, I added another 2 hours. Night of the 7th. And then, yeah, that is it. And so I'll go ahead and play through the level. I'm going to restart again. But I'll go ahead and play through the level and show you some of the stuff that I added. And so the first part of this was just adding the grenade launcher enemies around. Enemies are kind of floating in the build for some reason, which they were not in the editor. That's something I can fix next week. And so all the information is still there. So these metal enemies are actually strung to the laser. So what I like to do is pop one off, run back, and melt them when they stop. And so you run up here, see you can't get up here, follow the cables if you're lost. Come back here, you can see 2 cables. One is down low and going in there into the door, and then you can see one above, and as well as enemies walking up there, and a fan. So it means you should probably go in here. And so this part of the level, the first part of the level didn't really change that much, except just for health pickups. I added health pickups to areas where I noticed playtesters were having trouble. I've heard that specifically that area is that part is quite difficult. And yeah, let's see. So yeah, where players were dying a lot, I had health pickups, and then also I'm really happy with how the laser puzzles turned out, and the pacing went with introducing the mechanic. It starts with the obvious answer down there at the beginning with the door, and then you go to the hallway and you see the fans above you and the cable, so you feel like you should probably go upstairs, and it shows the player that they need to pay attention and look around and look for opportunities in the environment. And so I feel like I might die right here. Like that. And so I feel like it teaches the player to look around and look for opportunities. And I feel like I wanted to emphasize that early because it comes in handy at the end of the level when you have to fight the bosses. Let's find these guys. I feel like that part is really fun, just like going and hiding behind the cover and then having the enemy run up to you when it's fully charged. And so, I'll discharge that first. So this is where the first really big changes to the level comes in. Initially, I had the mini robot right here, but since we cut that portion of the level, I wanted to remove it, or since we cut that level from the final build, wanted to remove the mini portion just since it doesn't get introduced. I didn't want players to be confused on how to use it. So initially, the mini robot was right here, went into this air vent, came out on the other side, stood on a button there, and it opened this gate, so you could do that. But yeah, I removed that since the mini robot level got cut. And so instead I added this button, which opens up the air vent, and you can crouch to go inside. And you run down this air vent. And then you come out to a little platforming section where you have to jump over these fan blades. And these fan blades do damage you, and they do a significant amount of damage. Oop, there we go. And so here also, you can charge your laser while crouching. And so you can take out these turrets if you are paying attention. That one's hidden in the glow of the thing. And so we can stand on this button and open up this door. So that's another addition I made, was I added just a camera to the button since it was so far away. Also, you can see that there is that enemy just waiting for us to come back. Unless I should have been charging right there. B won't run at me up. Alright. And so yeah, that section kind of demonstrates too that you can charge the laser while jumping. The stairs is supposed to show that to you too, that you're supposed to charge the laser before you jump over that gap, because that turret's right there. But you can charge the laser while jumping and crouching, which will come in handy during the boss fight. And then, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this one. Open up my bridge. And before I fight the turret at the end of the bridge, I'll switch over to the boss level, or the boss task. Alright, and so laser gun level boss. As a player, I want a boss fight at the end of the level that is challenging and requires the use of the introduced mechanic. Dependencies, laser level fixes and additions. Grenade launcher enemy. And completion criteria, laser level boss that concentrates fire at the enemy, at the player, across the gap. And laser level boss area design that allows player to charge the laser while avoiding the boss's fire. And actually, I will show you the history for that. So this one looks like we added 3 hours on September 6th. And then we added 4 hours on September 7th. So switching back over, I'm going to kill this turret. And so I did a lot of work reworking the boss arena. I don't want to pull these guys, so I'm going to try to get too close. That gap was always there, that bridge was always there, but originally it was just the enemy at the end standing there, and it was our default boss enemy. And what you would do is you would just run around the arena while the boss was shooting at you, and you could charge your laser. And since there was such a distance, he would the bullets would kind of follow you and hit you when you had to stop to charge or stop to fire. And so I wanted to implement the usage of the laser into the boss fight aside from just using it as a weapon. So I added walls that come in. I'm just going to tell you what occurs now, and then I'll show it to you in a second. And so I added walls that come in when you activate them with the button or with the receiver. And so that made the boss way too easy because you could literally just hide behind the cover the entire time, pop out, and then shoot him, and then hide, get back behind cover, and it did nothing. And so I thought it would be a good idea to add the second boss that uses the grenade launcher as a weapon to kind of push the player out of cover. And so now you have to juggle these two things fighting at you, or shooting at you at the beginning. And you can get the cover activated, and then you can kind of take them on one at a time. You have the cover from the walls blocking some of the assault rifle boss's hits or shots, and then you have these pillars that rise out of the ground blocking the grenade launcher rounds. And so you can kind of take him on, and then once he's done, you can take on the assault rifle guy. So I'll go ahead and get started. Let's jump in. Now they are both shooting at me. Pop that one. Pop that one. Let's go ahead and do this. Oh, I missed it. Uh-oh. Nice. No, I died. Well, okay, and now I will just go ahead and show you a full run through of the level. Since I died on that boss. I don't know why I just did that. Getting close right there. Okay. Oops. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, I should have been paying more attention to my health there on that boss. Oh, that's unfortunate. let's dive in. So I'm gonna pop that early. And so this guy runs around and chases you while the other one, if you get close enough, shoots at you. I'm about to die. Let's heal up. Got him. This is the last one, I think. Yep. Alright. Let's take this guy out. I'll pop that one too. So what we do is we just heal up, fire, run into the other one, fire. Take him out like this. This is gonna be the last one, I think. Heal up. Then we can open up this last check. Alright. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I think I covered everything in the requirements and all of my JIRA tasks. Let's see. I got that one, I think. Oh well. Alright, yeah, that's everything. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Larkin, and I am from Team Shadowfall. And on this part, I will be showing that the executable can launch. Okay, as you can see, the executable can launch. And we will move over to the task. Okay, for the first task I will be showcasing, it will be tutorials and introductions. For the description, it is the user story and completion criteria. As a new player, I want to see a dialogue giving me tips on what to do when beginning the nano bridge level. And for the completion criteria, at the start, the level I want is a display across the screen that tells me what's going on with the bridge mechanic. And for the next one, the tip and tutorial should be a brief sentence. The display shouldn't last any longer than 10 seconds. And the subtask down here, and for this user story, we have actually 2 days logged. And that's including with the subtask, because each subtask is 4 hours. But the user story right here is 4 hours originally estimated. And the subtasks are the completion criteria parts, the 3 parts. And they give a description on what to do. Show a display across the screen that tells you how to use the bridge. And that's 4 hours I've logged for this one. And for the next one, the tip and tutorial should be a brief sentence. In the display, tell how the bridge works and what makes it build, and give it a tip on the aiming part. Well, for the aiming. And that's the description for that one. And for the last one, it is 4 hours, just like the previous one was. All 3 of these are 4 hours, the subtask. and it says the display shouldn't last any longer than 10 seconds. The display of the tutorial should not be on the screen longer than 10 seconds. So 4 hours were logged for this task, this subtask. And this subtask is a part of this user story. To complete this user story, you must complete these subtasks. And we should get on to the actual showcasing of this task. For this task, we will actually see it when we start off. Right now we see it in the left middle corner, well, the left middle of the screen. And let's say if we go back, you can read it, start the game to find the nano bridge, encounter the enemies. If you touch it, defeat them, build. Let's go back again to show it, read it out to you. Encounter the enemies. If you touch it, defeat them to build the bridge. Good luck. Then for the tip, hold the right mouse button when you are shooting to have better accuracy. And that is the part for the tutorial task. As a player, I want the shockwave pickup to affect all enemies, not just certain enemies. That is the title for the bug task. And for the description, we have the summary line, which is when the player uses the shockwave, some enemies are unaffected by it. And for the expected results of this, for all enemies to be affected by this, they're supposed to be affected by this mechanic, the shockwave. Actual results, the shockwave does nothing to some enemies. Some being the main actor is affected, but the copy that is spawned in with the spawner spawns in an index of that actor, which is a copy it makes, and it does not interact with that index. Only the main index 0 for the main actor where it starts under. So that is a problem, and it isn't affecting all of them at first. And that's the actual results we want, is it to affect all of the indexes. Steps to replicate: make sure if you have multiple enemy blueprints, all have the mechanic tied to them. So to have all the mechanic tied to them, I basically had to make a certain type of loop, and that's what I did to get that going. And for the severity, it's a very severe problem, because it can actually really help you. Like, say you want to knock enemies off the platforms you are on. If you knock them off the platform, they die from falling to their death, which actually can make it easier for you to actually survive and get past the part that you are at. So that plays a big part, and the hours I logged for this is 4 hours. And we will get to the showcasing of what was fixed in this bug. And this is the shockwave pickup. And when we hit this, we will spawn the enemies. There will be enemy index 0 and enemy index 1 from that copy of enemy index 0. So when I hit this to trigger it, to bring them in, basically it will affect both of them. They both have fallen to their death, and now we are able to go past the bridge. Okay. So once we hit this collision box that's in front of the bridge, we will showcase the shockwave again, how it is fixed, and how all enemies respond to the shockwave. One enemy just fell down there. Okay, so that's the second time to show the bug is fixed. And we'll be moving on to the last time where you encounter the enemies that spawn. Okay, so I will be showcasing it for the third time that the bug is fixed, because it was actually affecting all the enemies that spawn through each nano bridge. And I will show you here as I collide with the collision. All enemies fly up. And that is the showcasing for the fixing the bug. Okay, now we will be showing the third task, which is portals and level transitions. And for the description, user story, as a player, I want to be able to enter a portal that will teleport me to the next level. For completion criteria for that, the player will encounter a portal at the end of each level except the last, where the boss fight is at, for the boss fight level. And the portal will teleport the player once it is overlapped or walked into. After being teleported to the next level, you should be able to see the level and walk around. And for this user story task, I have 2 days logged, but that is also based off of the subtask. But I really logged just for this user story part right here 4 hours, but these sub stories right here, no subtasks are actually included in it. And this basically, the subtasks are the completion criteria parts. So you will see right here, the player will encounter a portal at the end of each level except the last level where the boss fight is at, and the level. And the completion criteria for that is every level concludes with a visible portal for the player to advance. The player can interact with portals to proceed to the next level. The boss fight, the level does not have a portal at its conclusion. Clear visual or audio cues significantly the presence and activation of the portals. So this is the completion criteria for that subtask. And for the next subtask, the portal will teleport the player once it is overlapped or walked into. For the description of this subtask, completion criteria: when the player character overlaps or walks into the portal, an immediate teleportation action is triggered. The player character is successfully transported to the designated location or level after teleportation. And for this task, I logged 4 hours. Let's see. Each of my subtasks should be 4 hours, making the 2 days for the user story. So let's go back. Hours logged and 4 hours logged for this subtask too. Now we will get into the showcasing of the actual task that was completed, which was the portal and teleportation. Okay, so for the showcasing of the second portal, you can see once you overlap with this portal, you will be prompted to be taken to the next level. You hit start next level and you are on the second level. Now, no, actually this is the first portal. So we actually need to get to the second portal actually. Okay, here is the second portal, and we are going to show again how this portal works. And if you overlap with this portal right here, if you make contact with it, it will teleport you to the last level, which is the boss level, which doesn't have another portal. So there is no third portal, but we're just going to show you that. It's going to ask you if you want to go to the next level or go back to the ship through the portal. And we are at the last level, and there are no more portals, and that concludes all the tasks, and that is the end of my sprint review.
Hello, my name is Daniel Martinez, and today I'm going to be going over my tasks for the Sprint 1 review for Team Shadowfall's Eclipse. So as you can see, we're here in Perforce, and we have the build here. You see the change number is 1186444, and that's the Sprint 1 build. I'm going to open the game up from the folder though. Just so you can see, the name is the same. BAL Sprint 1 Review build, September 8th. Just to show you that I'm opening up the right build. Okay, so now that we're on the main menu, I'm going to turn down the music volume a little bit so that I can talk without having to worry about having to talk over it. Go back to the main menu. Alright, so we'll open up our Jira tasks here, and we'll start with destroy pickups. So destroy pickups took me about 53 minutes to finish. The description is make pickups disappear after 10 seconds so they don't clutter up the playable areas. This was a problem because the more enemies we killed, they were all over the place. So now at least they have the chance to disappear so that they're not sitting all over the place. So the summary for this is, in the current state, every enemy that is killed drops a pickup of some kind. This leads to the playable areas getting filled up with very bright glowing pickups. This gets annoying and distracting. The expected result was the dead enemies drop pickups that can be picked up by the player and used to make him more powerful for a limited amount of time. The actual result, everything that is expected to happen does, but if the player does not pick up the pickups, they stay on the map forever. The steps to replicate this are to start the game and find the first set of enemies, shoot them and see what they drop, but don't pick it up. Stand there for as long as you want, it never disappears. The severity of this bug, it's not severe, it's ugly and distracting. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, let's show you what I mean. Okay. So as you can see, there's a pickup right here, so after about 10 seconds, it disappears. That way it's not just stuck on the screen. And I'll show you again after a couple seconds. They disappear, so they're not cluttering up the screen. Go back to the main menu. Alright, second on our list is fix widgets. Alright, so this one took me about 2 hours and 45 minutes because I originally did this when we were expecting to have every level in the game. We had about 12 levels. So I logged in a lot of time before I knew that we had to cut it down drastically. So I logged a lot of time. It was kind of unnecessary, but I still logged the time. So, the description for this, the summary, the level should all have a tutorial of some sort to tell the player what they need to do. The level should have a consistent format for doing this. The size of the text in the widget and its placement on the screen should all match up from level to level. The expected result, a small text box should appear at the start of the level to give a small tutorial at the level's mechanics. This should be in the same format and placement in every level. Actual result, some levels have the correct format and placement, some have a drastically different one on both accounts. Steps to replicate, go to the ship level and see the tutorial on the mid left side of the screen, then go to the ship's computer and open up level 1. The tutorial is massive and in the middle of the screen. It blocks most of the player's view and lasts way too long. It's not a severe bug, but consistency should be carried over. So let me show you what I mean. Now, keep in mind, all these bugs were fixed before we realized that we should have shown the bug before it was fixed, but I'm going to show you all the fixed stuff. So we'll go to the level select, and we'll start with level 1. See, the tutorial on the left side of the screen lasts about 7 seconds, should give the player enough time to read it, but see the size of the text and its position on the screen. So, back to the main menu, select level. Level 2, it's in the same spot. Same size text, same font, same color, same everything. So we'll once again go back to the main menu. We'll select, open up the final level. Same thing. Now it's a little larger box because the tutorial is a little bit bigger, but as you can see, same font, same position, everything. All right, so that's that one. So we'll move on to our next task. Okay, now the fixed sound settings. Now this one is done, but it's not done. I spent about a day and 54 minutes, which is 8 hours and 54 minutes working on this, because I could not seem to get it to carry over from level to level. Now I understand that I need to use a game instance to do that, but I'm still trying to figure out how to get that to work. But I know in the instructor's feedback, there was an issue where the sliders wouldn't stay consistent. Like if you set the slider and then exited out of the options menu but went back in, the sliders would reset back to their original positions. So I got that figured out. But as far as the description, the user story is, as a designer, I want a working sound setting so my players have control over the game's audio levels. Dependencies are the options menu and the game sounds. Completion criteria. Test out current sound settings. Make settings work throughout the entire game after setting them in the options. Like I said, I don't have that quite yet, but I'm getting there. Set the lowest volume to 0 so the music doesn't play when you turn it off. Add sound effect and voice effect to corresponding sliders to test them in the menu. Summary. The sound settings in the options menu don't seem to carry over after leaving the options menu. The bar, after being set to a different point, will return to its original state. When returning to the options menu, the sound settings also do not carry over to the other levels. Expected result. The sound settings should be able to be made quieter or be turned off from the options menu. These settings should also carry over to every level so the player does not have to set the volume controls from the options menu whenever they start a new level. Actual result. The settings do not carry over from level to level. The settings bar does not save and returns to its original state upon re-entering the options menu. Steps to replicate. Go into the options menu and move one of the settings bars. Leave the options menu and go back in. Then change one of the settings again and begin one of the game's levels. The sound should be back to its original setting. Severity. This bug is severe as it is really the only setting the player can change, and it doesn't work. So, like I said, I have it half finished, but in the next sprint I'm going to get the rest of it finished so it carries over from level to level. But let me show you the progress I have made on it. Alright, so from here, you have the settings menu. So, if you go into the settings menu, you got all the volume sliders. So we'll turn down the music, and there is no sound effects on the main menu, but we do have the sound that shows up when you click on the slider, so that you can test that it's turning up and down. Same thing with the voice volume. Okay, so if you go back into the settings, the sliders are back to their original state, which they shouldn't be because I tested that and for some reason it's not working. In the editor it's working, but in the build it doesn't seem to be working. Okay, so that is unfortunate, but we'll handle that in Sprint 2. So, moving on to the next one. Alright, so we have bullets going through walls. Alright, so this one took me about an hour and 50 minutes. The description is, the summary: when firing the gun at walls, the bullets seem to go right through and can kill enemies. The enemy's bullets have the same effect. Expected result: the bullets hit the wall and destroy on contact. Actual results: the bullets act as if there is no wall at all and go right through. Steps to replicate: aim weapon at the wall and fire. Try it with visible enemy behind the wall and see that the enemy is hit. This is a severe issue as it leads to finding the dropped items of dead enemies where the enemy should be. It makes the game too easy and takes away from the experience. So like I said, originally the bullets would go through the walls and you could shoot wildly in the level and walk through the level and not have a single enemy because you've already killed them all. But you would have originally seen their pickups, but now I even have the pickup set to disappear, so you would literally walk through just an empty level. So, for this one we're actually going to start on the ship, because I can demonstrate it best on here. So, when you fire a weapon at the wall, it now hits the wall, disappears on contact, and even has a little particle effect to show that it's hitting the wall. As you can see, the enemy's behind the wall, and it's not hitting the enemy at all, and you don't see the bullet going through the wall whatsoever. Back to the main menu, and on to the next task. Okay, so the next task is rapid fire. So this one took me 1 hour and 16 minutes to complete. Now, originally the gun didn't have rapid fire because we couldn't get it to work consistently where you just hold down the button and it would fire. The bullets would have gaps in them. It was almost kind of like a round burst, which was what we were going for. We were going for full automatic fire with the weapon. So the description reads as a player, I want to be able to hold down the fire button so I can fire continuously without having to keep pulling the trigger. The dependencies was the shooting mechanic, which we had. We did have the shooting mechanic, it just wasn't rapid fire. Completion criteria: tweak the re-triggering function so that the weapon fires at the correct rate to not make the game too easy but have the rapid fire effect. So, we'll jump into the game now and I'll show you that it works. Play game. So now, you can continue to hit the fire and fire one bullet at once, but if you hold down the button, you'll consistently rapid fire. No gaps, no breaks, all fire. Back to the menu. To our tasks. Alright, so, like I said, originally we had 12 levels in the game. We also had 7 team members. Since then, we've lost 2 team members, and we were informed that we had to cut the game down drastically, so we removed all but 3 of the levels. So this took me about an hour and 15 minutes. I had to disconnect all the levels from the end of other levels. I had to disconnect them from the level select screens and the ship's onboard computer. So the description is, as a designer, I want to remove any levels that were not finished so I don't build a game that has unfinished content. Dependencies, there really wasn't any. It was just the levels had to be there and I had to get rid of them, but there was no real dependencies. Completion criteria was remove all content left on the cut and room table by former team members, edit level select menus to reflect remove levels, and remove levels chosen by the team to not use. So, jump into the game. And I will start by showing you the level select. The original game had 12 levels. Now we're down to just 3, and the toy box level we left in there just so players can see that. And it is technically part of the game because when you respawn back at the ship. So you can choose whatever level you want. So we're actually going to go there so I can show you also the ship's onboard computer. When you walk over to it, this is also a level select, so that you can select your level from here on respawn. And then you have all the levels here, which originally was 12 and now is 3. Alright, back to the menu and on to the next task. Okay, so the next task was the menu buttons. Now for this issue, it took me an hour and 3 minutes to complete. Now the issue with this was that when you opened up a new menu like options or the credits or the quick game, you could still access the buttons from the previous menu. Like you could access the main menu buttons while having the options menu on top of it. Originally it had a blur effect on it, so you could see through and still click the buttons. So now the description reads, as a designer, I want to have clean access to open menu so I don't accidentally click on something I didn't mean to click on. Dependencies was the menus. The completion criteria was set every menu to UI input only and make the menu widget the focus. So, in summary, the buttons on the main menu preceding an open menu can still be accessed through the open menu. The expected result was the menu underneath the menu should not be accessible through the open menu. Sorry, it's a little confusing, but bear with me. Actual result. The options, level select, and credits menus all open as a widget on top of the main menu. Through the widget's background blur, the buttons on the main menu can be seen and hovered over. They can be pressed through the open menu. Steps to replicate. From the main menu, open one of the game's other menus, hover over the visible menu buttons, and click one of them. It will open as if you were still on the main menu. Severity. This is a fairly severe issue as the button on the menu the player is not... Sorry, let me read that again. This is a fairly severe issue as the button on the menu the player is not on should not be able to be pressed. This bug can lead to the player pressing a button they did not mean to and activating something they had not intended to, such as closing the game or starting the game prematurely. Again, I'm not sure if I said it, but this took me 1 hour and 3 minutes to fix. So let's go into the game and show that I fixed it. So we'll start with the quick game. If you open that up, there's no menus behind. You don't hear the click when it's hovering over. You can click no, take it back here. Credits, same thing. No buttons underneath. No accidentally clicking things. And in the settings, same. And the level select also. Alright, so that's done. We'll move on to the next one. Alright, so for game input mode, this took me 1 hour and 27 minutes to complete. For this, for some reason, a lot of the levels, well, this also, let me explain, this also took long because I originally did it when we had 12 levels. But originally, when you opened a lot of the levels, you'd have to click the screen before you had access to movement or rotation or anything. When the idea was to have the level playable right from the start. You don't want to have to click on the screen before you can do anything. So the description reads, as a designer, I want to have a ready transition from menu to game so I don't have to click on the screen to gain playability. Dependencies are game level blueprints. Oh, that's it, sorry. Completion criteria, go into each level and add set game input nodes to begin play blueprint. And set game input mode to game only and set show mouse to false. So let's show you on each level if that works. So go back to the game, click the level, Nano Bridge. Now, without clicking on the level, I can just turn and move and everything. So, next level. Same thing. No mouse click. Turning. Moving. Third level. No mouse click. Turning. And moving. And just so you can see, I'll show you it also works on the ship. No mouse click, turning, and moving. Okay, next. All right, next we have standard action button. Now this one took me a while to find because I had to find all the instances where either myself or my teammates had a bunch of unnecessary keys being pressed for different actions when they could have all be set to the same action or that same key. So this took me 2 hours and 15 minutes. The description reads, as a player, I want a single button that interacts with all interactables, so I don't need 30 fingers to play this game. There's no dependencies, but the completion criteria is make a single interactable key for anything the player can interact with, such as doors, NPCs, levers, and computers. Alright, so we'll get to the game. For this, I can show you everything right on, well, I can show you almost everything on the ship. I'll show you a computer when I go into a level. So, for instance, this NPC here, it says press E to talk, and if I press the E key, I can talk to the NPC. Now, we got rid of the level with any levers, so there is no levers to pull. But you can pick up the keys with E, and then you can go and open the respective door, also with E. So, to show you the ship, the computer that I'm talking about, we'll go into the nano bridge. There's no computer on that one. Let's add that one in. Let's try the other level. There it is. Okay, so there's the computer for this level. So, it says press E to go back to ship. Do that. Press yes, and voila. You're back at the ship. Okay, so next task. Alright, ranged enemy distance. Now for this one took me 2 hours and 43 minutes because there was a lot to go through. The idea was to have the enemy would originally run right up to the character before he started shooting at you. So we changed this so that the enemy will stop further back and start shooting at you, because a ranged enemy shouldn't have to run right up on top of you to fire their weapon. They should be able to do it from a distance. Description says, as a player, I want the enemy to keep their distance when shooting at me so I can effectively shoot them back. Dependencies, standard enemies, completion criteria, set a limit to the distance the enemy will run towards the character before stopping to shoot at him. Took me 2 hours and 43 minutes. Okay, so go to the first set of enemies in here. So now, when they spawn, they're already at the distance where they'll start shooting. Now they'll keep trying to find a place that's more convenient for them to shoot me, but they'll start shooting at a greater distance. And as you can see in the demonstration, they actually tried to run behind me, but they ran out of walking space. Alright, next task. And this will be my final task, is the adrenaline and 2 times damage feedback. So this took me a long time because I couldn't find the code. The actual code for these particular mechanics and pickups were created by other teammates. I only added the visual feedback for them on the character, and I couldn't seem to find the right place to put the code to make this feedback occur. So it took me a very long time. Plus I had to find the right particle effect. I had to color the particle effect to match what I needed it to be. So it took a lot longer than it needed to, but it's just because I didn't know where the code was. So the description is, as a player, I want to see a change to the character's appearance so I know the adrenaline mechanic is active. Now the 2 times damage feedback was actually added a little bit after. So it's not in the user story, but dependencies are adrenaline pickup, adrenaline mechanic, 2 times damage pickup, and 2 times damage mechanic. Completion criteria are create a visual cue for when the player has the adrenaline mechanic active, make the character glow or change color when it is active, create a visual cue for when the player has the 2 times damage mechanic active. Alright, so for this, we're going to go into Ship Hub because all the pickups are right here. So we will start with the adrenaline, which is this yellow cube right here. So when you pick it up, you hear a heartbeat, and you also see all these little glowing orbies going around the character. And it'll last for the entire duration of the heartbeat, which is the 10 seconds that the mechanic is active. So once the heartbeat stops, so does the particle effect. So, unfortunately, I'll have to restart because the pickups disappear after 10 seconds. So we will go into the level. We'll go back to the ship. We'll go pick up the 2 times damage. Alright, so for this one, you can see not only do the bullets have a denser look to them, but when you fire, demonstrate it one more time just to show you. Now you have only a certain amount of shots that you can do once you pick up this particular power-up. So every time you fire one of those shots after picking up this power-up, you'll also see a burst of fire around the camera. Which also effectively stops when you run out of those bullets. Alright, so that is all of my tasks. Unfortunately, the sound settings are still a work in progress. Like I said, they worked in the editor. For some reason, they're not working in the build. But I did spend a lot of time on it, and I'm still working on it, so I wanted to at least showcase that it was doing something. So I will get all that fixed before Sprint 2, and I'd like to thank you for watching. So I know I already ended my video, but in the video I was speaking of the audio settings, and when I went to show the progress I had made on them, for some reason in the build it didn't work. But I know that in the editor it was working. So I decided to go back and do a little checking on what I had in the editor, and I discovered this. So as you can see, I have the editor open here. So when I start the game from the editor and open up the main menu, and I go into the settings, as you can see, the settings are saved. From when I closed it last time and gone back in here, they're at the settings I left them. But let me move them around, just to show you they're in different spots. And then when I hit back and go back into the settings, they're in the spots they were in where I left them. So I don't know why it's not working in the build, because this is the editor, this is the saved progress in the editor from that the build was made from. So I don't understand why the audio settings are not working in the build, but they're working in here. But I just wanted to show you that the audio settings are there, and the progress and the time I spent on it wasn't for nothing, because it is working, just not in the build. So that's what I need to figure out for Sprint 2, along with making it carry over to other levels. But as you can see here, I'll even demonstrate again. Change the levels on everything. Go back. So I open the settings again. There they are, the places I just left them. Even if I close the editor, or close the game, open it up again, and open the settings, they save to the places I set them in. So just to show you my work wasn't for nothing, I did make progress on it.
Alright, hi, my name is Brandy Neal, and today I'm going to be going over what I completed for game balancing for Sprint 1. So to start off, the first task that I had was creating a 2-time damage bullet. This is the bullet for the pickup that I created that increases the player damage. The completion criteria was to create a bullet that does more damage and have the bullet be spawned when certain conditions are met. The original time for this was 6 hours, along with 2 subtasks that took me 4 hours to complete each. The next task was the 2-time damage pickup itself, which the completion criteria was when the player picks up the 2-time damage, the damage will be increased, and the power will last for only 10 seconds, with 2 subtasks that Took me another 4 hours to complete each. And the next task that I had was the level transition. This is the final windscreen. So after the player completes a level, it'll pop up and say level complete, and I have a button to return the ship and a button that says next level. With two subtasks to make the button and the two buttons, the return ship button and the next level button, which took me about 2 hours each to complete. And my last task was the computer prompt. In the ship hub level, I created an NPC and added more dialogue to it that tells the player where they can find the level kiosk so they're able to return back to the level that they did not complete. And now I'm gonna show you my work in the build. So the first thing I'm gonna show is the NPC and the 2-time damage pickup. So for the pickup, when you pick it up, it spawns damage bullets which turn red. It lasts for about 10 seconds, and it does more damage to enemies and stuff. And for the NPC, I added a prompt that says, when you finish, head over to the green level kiosk to start a mission, which is over here, so the player doesn't get stuck in this area. And the last thing I did was the level completion screen, so I'm going to play through the first level of our game to show you the end prompt that pops up when the player finishes. Okay. It said I didn't release this bridge. Yeah, I died. Let me try to play through again. Alright, back here again. So I try this. Alright, so there we go. try to do this one more time. Sorry. Reach the end of the level and screen pops up saying level complete and start next level takes you to the next level. And that is the end of everything I did for Sprint 1. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Rowett, and this is my postmortem review for the end of Sprint 1 for game ballots. So, just to show, this is the AXE for the build that we've put in the workspace, and it's the same build that was here. You can see the 1 out of 1 for the file revision. It was last modified today. If I then open the folder here, show it in Explorer, we have the build, and I can open the build. Game has 3 levels at the current time. We have a toy box, level 1, level 2, level 3. And this is the beginning of the first level, which is something that I ended up not working on. So just to go back to level select, this level is the level that I needed to work on the most. But then I ended up working on a lot of character things. So as you can see, when we opened and loaded into the level, there was a tutorial that showcased the way that the player needs to use controls. So the gimmick for this level is these doors. That the player needs to be crouching by having tapped C and then holding down Q to go invisible. And while the player is invisible, they emit smoke and do not trigger those sorts of things. And while they are emitting smoke, you can't shoot. Just to showcase where this is on Jira, we did not originally have a tutorial for how the healing shroud mechanic needed to work. And in the original charter for this, the key was M. We ended up changing the key to Q after some playtesting. We figured out that M wasn't a very comfortable key to hold down, so we needed to change that. Make doors taller so player can't jump over them. This was a quick fix. In the areas, these doors were not tall enough. There were a number of bugs that the player could use to jump over the walls, which was mainly what the problem was. But the player can't jump over these doors anymore the same way. There's an invisible wall there. Next on the docket, add a visual indicator for healing pulses. So, when the player is shrouded, you'll see every 3 seconds, there's this pulse that happens. So just to showcase what that is, if I get out, if I take some damage from combat and then sit in the shroud for a period of time, I recover 2 health every 3 seconds. That's up from 1 since the last time we did the build. But every time that the player recovers health, there's a flash of green. And since we use green to denote health in this, with that being the color of the health bar, and that being the color of health pickups, like that, I thought that that was a good idea. Making the smoke visual be attached to the player. So this was kind of hard to do, at least a little bit. The visual on the smoke used to be world generated. So it would look correct if the player was standing still. That it would curl up and around the player. But when the player moved, they would just be generating the smoke field as they walked, and it wouldn't stick to the player and make them look like they're, hard to see. That was a problem for a while, and so that needed to get resolved. But finding exactly where you made the player stick the smoke and how to make that work was kind of a challenge. The other thing that you can notice is the pulses don't stick. And since they're an instant effect, that made more sense to me for visual clarity. But that was this that I ended up spending some time on. For objectives, mechanics, and minimap widgets on level 11. This level was level 11 in the previous class. It's gotten moved to level 2. Our game got squished quite a bit. for dead enemy fire. Enemies for roughly a second after they were dead. Their gun would keep firing. It stops. Finding where that needed to be a thing was honestly pretty fiendishly difficult. Because it's not clear where that was located. I didn't end up setting up the gun code for the enemies, and so there was a function that was improperly named. At least it wasn't descriptively named, so that was unclear. So that ended up taking a little longer than I thought that it would. Jump aiming. It used to be that the player can aim while holding right click, and it does this aiming laser. The player could jump into the air and aim. So, aiming disables the player movement. And this is kind of a funny story. By fixing this bug, I ended up creating another one that I had to fix. When I made it so that the player couldn't start aiming while they were falling, I forgot to change that on release, the player was returned to walking. And so what would happen is the player was in the air and they would right click and they wouldn't be able to aim. But whenever they released the button, they would be walking for a split second. And if they were holding down spacebar, it would try to make them jump. And so the player could just have infinite jumps by holding down spacebar and right clicking. And so they could just fly around the map, which, while hilarious, is not intentional at all. So finding out how to make that work correctly is also not ideal. Finally, for the laser shadow. This laser that was used for aiming, you can see that it's glowing. This had a shadow because it was a physical object. And I ended up rebuilding the way that this laser sight works because that was easier than just making it not have a shadow for some reason. And that took some time to make it all work and make it look how it needs to, especially to get it to glow. So, and that was this laser shadow that took time. That's the main on what I ended up doing. This level 7 fixes. Level 7 ended up not getting incorporated into the final product. We spent some time working on it previously, but it ended up not being included. So I had some time that I had logged that I had spent on the project, but these things happen. So yeah, thank you.